It was a calm evening when Sarah began her journey home after attending her friend's engagement ceremony. The road stretched quietly under a cloudy sky, and a soft drizzle started to fall. The world around her felt peaceful until her car suddenly made a strange sound and came to a stop. She tried to restart it, but the engine refused to respond. For the first time that day, she felt a wave of worry. The highway was nearly empty, and the light was fading fast. Sarah stepped out, trying to wave at the few passing vehicles, but no one stopped. The rain grew heavier, soaking her hair and clothes, yet she stayed calm, hoping someone kind would pass by. After a few minutes, headlights appeared in the distance. A black SUV slowed down beside her. The driver, a tall man with a calm, friendly face, rolled down the window and asked if she needed help. Sarah explained what had happened. The man listened patiently and then offered her a lift to the next town, saying there was a mechanic there. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should accept, but when she saw two more men sitting in the back seat, smiling politely, she decided to trust them. She got in, thanking them softly. The inside of the car was warm and smelled faintly of coffee. The men introduced themselves and started casual conversation about the weather and how the roads were getting worse because of the rain. Sarah relaxed a little. They seemed friendly, respectful, and calm. The man driving spoke gently, asking if she lived nearby. She told him she was from the city and had just attended her friend's engagement. He laughed and said he hoped her car problem wouldn't ruin her evening. As the car moved, the sound of rain on the roof mixed with the rhythm of the wipers. Sarah looked out the window, watching the drops slide across the glass. The world outside was dark and wet, but inside, the car felt safe and quiet. After a few minutes, the driver took a turn from the main road. Sarah noticed it and asked softly, "Is this still the way to the town?" The man smiled and said there was a shorter route through this side road. His tone was calm, but something inside her grew uncertain. She looked at her phone to check her location but found there was no signal. The silence in the car grew heavier for a few moments. The men in the back started talking about how people rarely help strangers anymore. One of them said, "You know, sometimes people look at us and think we're trouble, but we're just like anyone else, trying to live a good life." Sarah didn't know what to say. She managed a small smile and nodded. The driver noticed her unease and tried to make her comfortable. "Don't worry," he said, "you'll be at the mechanic soon. We just didn't want to leave you stranded in the rain." Sarah felt a mix of gratitude and confusion. Her instincts told her to stay alert, but her heart wanted to believe their kindness. She held her phone tightly, quietly sharing her live location with her friend just in case it started working again. The rain slowed down as they passed through a quiet stretch of road surrounded by trees. Sarah watched the shadows outside, her thoughts racing. She wondered why life sometimes tested her trust in such unexpected ways. After a few more minutes, the driver slowed the car and stopped near a small roadside stall where dim lights flickered under a tin roof. He said they could have tea before continuing. Sarah looked around. There was no one else on the road. She hesitated again but followed them out of the car, standing a little apart as they ordered tea. The men talked casually, laughing among themselves, while she stood under the soft glow of the stall's lantern. Something about the moment felt strange but calm at the same time, as if she was standing at the edge of something she didn't yet understand. When the tea arrived, the driver offered her a cup. "You look cold," he said kindly. She took it, her hands trembling slightly from the chill. He smiled again, and for a brief second, she saw genuine warmth in his eyes. The night air was quiet except for the soft sound of rain returning. Sarah sipped her tea slowly, unsure of what was waiting for her next, unsure whether this journey was a mistake or the beginning of something that would change her forever. The rain stopped as the car started moving again. The night sky was dark but peaceful, the moonlight barely breaking through the clouds. Inside the car, the quiet returned. Sarah sat by the window, her thoughts lost somewhere between fear and faith. She wanted to believe these men were kind strangers, but a part of her kept warning her to stay careful. The man driving looked at her through the rearview mirror and asked softly, "You're very quiet. Everything okay?" She smiled politely and said, "Yes, I'm fine. Just a little tired." He nodded and said, "Don't worry, we'll reach the town soon. There's a small repair shop on the way. My cousin works there." The two men in the backseat started sharing light jokes, talking about their own travel stories. Their laughter filled the car, and for the first time, Sarah felt the tension ease a little. She noticed how they treated each other like brothers, teasing and protecting one another. There was a sense of bond and warmth between them. As they drove farther, one of the men offered her a bottle of water. She hesitated but then accepted it with a quiet, "Thank you." He smiled and said, "You know, people don't usually trust strangers on the road these days. You're brave for accepting our help." Sarah replied, "I guess sometimes we have no choice but to trust someone." The driver nodded and said, "That's true. But sometimes, trust itself teaches us who we are." His words stayed in her mind. She looked out again. The road ahead was long and silent, with trees swaying gently in the wind. After a while, the car passed a small checkpoint, and Sarah saw a few locals standing nearby. She thought about asking for help, but something inside told her to wait. These men hadn't done anything wrong. Maybe her fear was only in her mind. A few minutes later, the driver parked the car near a small roadside cafe lit by yellow bulbs. "We'll rest for 5 minutes," he said. "You can stretch your legs." Sarah nodded and stepped out. The air felt fresher now, carrying the scent of wet earth. The men ordered coffee and snacks, while Sarah stood nearby, looking at the empty road stretching into the distance. One of them came over with a paper cup of coffee and handed it to her. "You remind me of my sister," he said with a kind smile. "She also travels alone for work. We always worry about her." His words felt genuine, and for the first time, Sarah's heart softened completely. Maybe these were good men, maybe her fear had been unfair. They all sat quietly, sipping the drinks. The men talked about their homes in Africa, their families, and the dreams. They spoke about how hard it was to be seen differently just because of where they came from. Sarah listened carefully. One of them said, "People think our skin makes us dangerous, but all we carry is hard work and hope." Those words touched her deeply. She realized how easy it is to judge someone without knowing their story. The conversation slowly turned warm and emotional. She shared her own fears, how she'd been taught to be careful but sometimes ended up feeling lonely because of that same fear. They all nodded with understanding. The driver said softly, "Life tests us through the people we meet. Some teach us pain, and some teach us trust." Sarah smiled faintly, realizing there was truth in his words. When they got back in the car, the mood had completely changed. The silence now felt peaceful, not heavy. Sarah no longer clutched her phone tightly. She leaned her head against the seat and looked at the stars beginning to appear above the open road. The driver turned on some soft music. It was slow and calming, matching the rhythm of the journey. The men hummed along, their voices blending gently with the tune. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, feeling strangely safe. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A message from her friend flashed on the screen. "Be careful, Sarah. I heard there are fake drivers on that route tonight." Her heart skipped a beat. She glanced around the car quietly. The men were still talking and laughing softly. The driver's eyes stayed focused on the road. Nothing looked wrong, but fear crept back into her chest. She put her phone away and stared out the window again. The darkness outside seemed deeper now. The car headlights cut through the fog, lighting only a small path ahead. Her mind filled with questions she couldn't answer. Were they really kind strangers, or was she about to learn the most painful lesson of her life? The night slowly faded into a pale gray morning as the car entered the city limits. The streets were still quiet, and a cool breeze brushed against the windows. Sarah had barely slept during the journey. Her thoughts kept circling back to that message from her friend, warning her to be careful. When the car stopped near a fuel station, the driver turned and said, "We're almost there. You can call your friend or anyone if you'd like." His tone was calm, almost reassuring. Sarah nodded and tried to turn her phone on again. This time, the signal came back. She sent her friend a message saying she was safe. A few minutes later, the driver pulled up near a small workshop by the roadside. "This is my cousin's place," he said. "He can look at your car later today. But for now, you can take a taxi from here to your home. It's just 20 minutes away." Sarah thanked them sincerely. Her fear had faded into gratitude. They had not only helped her but made sure she reached a safe place. As she stepped out, one of the men helped her with her small bag. The driver said gently, "Take care. Not every road is dangerous, sometimes, the people on it just need a little faith." Sarah smiled, waved goodbye, and walked toward the main road to get a taxi. When she looked back, the black SUV was already gone. She felt a strange emptiness, as if something meaningful had ended quietly. Back home, she rested for a few hours before unpacking her things. That's when she noticed something missing, her small brown bag that held her jewelry and a few personal papers. Panic rushed through her. She checked everywhere but couldn't find it. She remembered placing it on the car seat beside her. Her heart sank. She immediately tried calling the driver on the number he had given her, but the phone was switched off. She tried again and again, but there was no response. Slowly, the reality hit her. Maybe she had been betrayed after all. She sat down, feeling tears in her eyes. The memory of their polite smiles and kind words now felt like a lie. How could they do that after everything? She had trusted them, and they had taken advantage of her kindness. The feeling of betrayal hurt more than losing the bag itself. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the journey, every word, every moment, every look. She wondered if she had been too trusting or too naive. Her friend called and scolded her gently, saying, "You should never accept rides from strangers, Sarah. You're lucky nothing worse happened." Sarah stayed silent. Her mind was tired, her heart heavier than before. Days passed, and she tried to forget about it, but something about that night stayed with her, the sound of their laughter, the driver's calm voice, and that strange sense of peace she had felt in the car. A week later, while she was at home reading, the doorbell rang. When she opened it, there was a small parcel on the floor. There was no name, just her address written neatly. Confused, she brought it inside and opened it slowly. Inside was her brown bag, the same one she thought she had lost forever. Every single thing inside was untouched, her jewelry, her papers, even the small notebook she carried. On top of the bag was a folded note. Sarah unfolded it with trembling hands. The note read, "Greater than, we tested your trust. People judge us for our faces, but we never meant to hurt you. The world often fears what it doesn't understand. We just wanted to remind you that not every stranger is bad." Sarah sat frozen, reading the note again and again. A strange mix of emotions filled her, relief, guilt, and deep reflection. They hadn't betrayed her at all. In fact, they had tested her faith in humanity and proved her wrong in the most unexpected way. Tears welled up in her eyes. She realized that her fear had been the true betrayal, not theirs. The men had given her something far more valuable than a ride. They had given her a lesson about trust and judgment that she would never forget. She held the note close, whispering to herself, "Sometimes, the people we fear the most are the ones who teach us the deepest truths." Days turned into weeks, but that night and the message in that note stayed in Sarah's heart like a quiet echo. She often found herself staring at the brown bag, remembering the rain, the car, and the faces of the three men who had changed her way of seeing the world. What began as fear had ended in faith. She decided to write about her experience in her diary, turning her confusion into reflection. Her words flowed with emotion, not of anger, but of understanding. She wrote, "The world is full of people we don't know. Some may hurt us, but some appear just to remind us that kindness still exists." That single thought inspired her to start a small blog called Stories from the Road. She began sharing short stories about human kindness, courage, and lessons learned from unexpected moments. At first, only her close friends read them, but soon, others started following her page. People from different places sent her their own stories, about strangers who helped them, about faith found in small gestures, and about the beauty of trust. Through writing, Sarah slowly healed from her old fear. She stopped judging people by their looks or backgrounds. The memory of those three men became a symbol of something greater, the reminder that appearances could deceive, but goodness could still shine through. One day, months later, she was volunteering at a charity event that provided food and clothes for children. The place was full of cheerful noise, children laughing, volunteers smiling, music playing softly in the background. Sarah was helping organize boxes when she felt someone's gaze on her. When she turned around, she froze for a moment. Standing across the room, serving food to the children, was one of the same men from that rainy night. His smile was the same, gentle, warm, and peaceful. Their eyes met briefly, and in that quiet second, she felt everything rush back, the fear, the journey, the note, the lesson. He didn't come over, and she didn't say anything either. They simply exchanged a nod, a silent greeting filled with gratitude and understanding. It was as if both of them knew that some connections didn't need words. Sometimes, A simple glance was enough to say thank you. As the event ended, Sarah stood outside, watching the sunset paint the sky orange. The wind felt softer, carrying the scent of new beginnings. She smiled to herself and whispered, "Maybe God sends people to test our hearts, not our safety." That night, she wrote her final entry about the experience. She ended it with these words: "Greater than, not every stranger is a danger. Not every road leads to fear. Sometimes, life takes us on unexpected paths, just to teach us that humanity still lives here, quietly but surely." Sarah's story soon became one of the most shared posts on her blog. People from around the world commented about how it touched their hearts. Some said it helped them trust again, others said it reminded them of times when kindness came from the most unlikely places. As months passed, Sarah continued to travel, but now with a different heart, open, patient, and wiser. Whenever it rained, she would smile, remembering that night when 3 strangers taught her the most beautiful lesson of her life. The screen fades in the final scene, a car moving slowly under a cloudy sky, raindrops glistening on the windshield, and Sarah's voice narrating softly. This isn't a story about fear. It's a story about trust, tested, shaken, and rebuilt. Sometimes, strangers are the ones who bring us back to faith. The background music rises gently, a soft piano and rain sound mix, and the story ends with one final message appearing on screen. Trust carefully, but never stop believing in kindness.